And call the Clark County Board of Education October 24, 2019 special meeting to order at 7 p.m. At this time, we'd like to welcome everybody from being here, and hopefully we can get some things done tonight, but we do appreciate you being here and understand the importance of why you are here. At this time, I would like for everyone to stand for a moment of silence and then the pledge. In our moment of silence, I think everybody knows some of the tragedies we've had over the past couple of weeks and this past week here with Bobby Gibson and Kristen Pearsall. We'd just like for you to remember those families in your silence there. Thank you. Now the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, item number 1 is the adoption of the agenda. Since it is a special meeting, nothing can be added to the agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion from board members. You can show that action.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
We got a motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes 4-0 with Ms. Ritchie being absent at this time. We do have some people signed up for public comment. If you did intend to sign up but did not, we'll add you to it later if you do want to do it. I will remind everyone, we're probably all here to talk about the same thing, so hopefully we won't keep rehashing the same thing all the time. The other thing is just keep in mind it is a special meeting. The only thing that you can address tonight is the item on the agenda, which is the wording of this proposal. So those are the things that you can address tonight. So just be aware of those things, and also of what other people have said before, and we'll see if we can make this go through as smooth as possible. At this time, I have Carrie Goff. If you just come to the podium.
Make it official.
Yeah.
I am Carrie Goff, and I am here on behalf of GRC Baseball Boosters. I am the president of the Booster Organization, and I'm also speaking on behalf of several of the other Boosters organizations. I drew the short straw on that. In regards to the Boosters Agreement, in your meeting, I think last week, there was a lot of question about why we had not signed. And the failure to sign that agreement has not been because we don't want to comply. It's actually the exact opposite, because we can't sign an agreement where we knowingly are going to be out of compliance from the minute that we step on the field for a practice. Mr. Peridot, you stated that the new agreement memorialized what had been instructed to the boosters organizations in the past verbally. And that is true for paragraph 2, where it says that boosters and parents are encouraged to buy from the vendor of choice. We do not have a problem with that at all. The issue and where we are not able to comply comes with paragraph 3. And paragraph 3 is actually a contradiction against paragraph 2. Because paragraph 2 says we encourage you to do it, but in paragraph 3, it says all sports apparel, merchandise, and equipment worn by a player must come from the approved vendor, which is BSN Sports. I know baseball boosters, we don't supply, and district doesn't supply all of the equipment that our players wear. And we certainly don't supply everything that they wear to a practice. If you're talking about, if we look at equipment, I mean, you would be down to baseball gloves, and that's player specific, and I don't think any of us want to be in a position where, as an organization or as a school district, that we have to supply that type of stuff to the boys. You know, for different organizations, that's going to mean different things. You know, you could be shin guards, but it all comes down to the same thing, is that we don't supply that stuff to the kids. And that is our purpose, is to be here to support and supply what they need, but we can't do it in a restrictive manner where we can't comply with what you all would like us to do. I asked for a copy of the BSN contract, and Mr. Christie was kind enough to send it to me. And I think if the language in the BSN contract were adopted into the boosters agreement, that we could all make it work. It says in the BSN agreement that it doesn't say anything about practices. It doesn't say anything about equipment. It says that in a varsity game, that Nike BSN apparel uniforms must be worn along with sideline gear. And I know that raises the issue for some organizations as far as budgets and how do they comply with that, and perhaps that's a separate discussion. But I think the biggest piece is if we either take out paragraph 3 in its entirety or amend it so that it is reflective of the language that's in the BSN contract, that our organizations could make that work. The only other piece is that it states that you are allowed to use your existing uniforms until your year of rotation. And that is specifically stated in the BSN contract, but it is missing from the contract that we are asked to sign. And so I would like that to be spelled out so that it's very clear when we are expected to start purchasing those uniforms from BSN. We currently are on a 4-year rotation. I know there's been some discussion of a 3-year rotation, so I think some of us are unclear as to what our year of rotation is or will be going forward. And so if a copy of that could be attached to the back of the boosters agreement and it referenced therein, I know, speaking on behalf of baseball, we could sign it. And I think a lot of the organizations that I spoke with yesterday could sign it as well. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Jeannie Gwynn.
Since I just have to stick to what is in the booster agreement, everything Carrie spoke of, I'm the vice president of the GRC Boys Basketball Boosters, by the way. We met last night and some other booster organizations, and we all agree with all the points that Carrie brought up to you. Just one other little tidbit. If we are spending booster money, I would prefer to spend booster money the way that would be most economically to spend it. So if we have a deal with somebody that we can get 40% off custom apparel, I would much rather do that than spend money on stock apparel that's not the same, lesser percentage off. So if we could have the freedom to spend the booster money the most economical way that we believe to spend it in, I believe we could comply as well. And to rotate it out, because we have a lot of new items. When my son started as a freshman 3 years ago, we had no money and very few uniforms. We started from scratch, and we built it up over the last 3 years and passed the uniforms down to try to be frugal and be fiscally responsible. So those are my 2 items that I'd like to be included as well.
Thank you. Heather Penachette?
I'm actually not going to waste your time. I think Carrie Goff and Jeannie are extremely intelligent and they've got this under control, so I'm going to pass now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I just want to make sure, just in case you did miss signing in, if you do want to speak, I will. Okay, thank you. Under Student Support Services, item number 2, consider approval to amend Board Procedure 9.33 AP2 Booster Support Club Agreement. And I will kind of go down to each board member here in just a second, just to kind of give your thoughts of where you want to go with this and how elaborate that we want to get with this. I will say from my own standpoint that, I do think that I'm not going to apologize for everybody else, but I'll apologize for myself, because I think we did get a little bit wordy in the agreement that we did, and I don't think that really came to mind until last week when we found out that people had not signed the agreement. So it became news to us at the board, so therefore we didn't know anything was really wrong until we get to this point here. So once that happened, I was contacted by some board members who then asked me, said, I think we need to get back and we need to change some of those things. So that's basically why we're here. I can certainly tell you that this board has done a great deal for athletics, and I think this board has really attempted to help you guys out. I speak for myself as a former coach, as a former AD, as a former principal, and former Booster Club members. My daughters both played basketball and soccer here at GRC. So I've been through every stage of it right there, and I know the things that Booster Clubs go through. I know the work that you do, and I also know the appreciation of being a principal when you can't afford money, and if I can't afford things, and Booster Clubs come through for you in that. So I certainly do that, and I think this board does the same time. I think if you look at some of the things that have happened this year, even facilities aside, over $100,000 has been spent on equipment for athletic teams already this year, with even more to be spent. Now, this is money that did not have to be spent, and this would be money that the school and also Booster Clubs would have been responsible for if we had not have put this in here. I also know that there will be a proposal next week to purchase the next set of uniforms for every team that we have out here. I think it was made apparent to some board members, at least to this board member, that sometimes boosters are asked to foot that bill much more than what the schools are. So I think we have decided to try to put together, and I'm not saying this will be passed, I'm just telling you this is a proposal that's on there right now, that possibly that can be done in your next rotation, which I think that would help person with baseball talking about, do we have to go do this at this time or whatever. So I did want to let you know that there is a lot of things that we have done already at this time to try to help out Booster Clubs, because I think, we got 2 Booster Club people on here. Mr. Heisel has been in band boosters many, many times, and like I said, I explained you my background with boosters. So I don't think there was any intent whatsoever to try to hinder or hurt you in any way, and I'm glad we're here tonight, and hopefully when we walk out of here tonight, where we stand and the things that you need to do to be in compliance with the Booster Club agreement. For my own, like I said, I'm just going to state, my opinions on it. I agree with what was some said. I do think that paragraph 3 is a huge problem in there. I'm perfectly content with going back with our agreement that we adopted on 9/19 of this year, which didn't have this other language in there. And I think I could support anything that had minimal language added to that. But I think one of the lessons that I've learned is that when we get things from KSBA, that's the organization that supplies us with board policies, they have been vetted really, really well. And when you start adding words to those things is when you start getting in trouble. And I think that's a lesson that I've learned with this, of words going down, what my interpretation of them are, and then what the interpretation of someone else. And sometimes when they do go through a series of lawyers, every once in a while, Mr. Thomas, your profession does pretty well. But when they do go through that, I think it does help a great deal. So I'm just going to pass it down, and if you want to speak, you can speak. If you don't, you can pass it on down.
So I agree with Ms. Goff. I think, paragraph 3 is something that we missed with some of the language. I think we personally, I believe I overstepped on that vote because it states more than what our BSN contract states, okay? And my intention, well, guess what? My thought process was, personally, I don't want to speak for anybody else, was we went into an agreement with BSN or this vendor, and I wanted to have the same language from that contract in the booster agreement, so we're all on the same page, okay? So everybody knows, that, you can continue to wear the same uniforms. I think the merchandise and equipment needs to be stricken or taken out of that language because of, like you said, bats, gloves, things of that nature, basketballs, the only thing it states is game day uniform and sideline gear. As a past officer of football boosters, I know boosters are asked a lot. And I think what what we were trying to do is take some of that off of the boosters. So hopefully the boosters, if it's hard for the school to supply, $25,000 worth of uniforms, okay? So if there's an occasion where the board needs to step in and help do that, then hopefully, there's a proposal put in front of us at some point. But there is a proposal going to be put on the agenda, as Mr. Peridot mentioned. So I would like to see the third paragraph just change to where it basically states almost what your proposal state, what you state, Ms. Goff, is add the terms and conditions from the BSN contract into that language, and with the uniform rotation, and knowing that teams can use their existing uniforms up until their new rotation is up, which I don't see why we couldn't include separate, maybe not part of the contract, but just a piece of paper or document stating when those uniforms are up.
Thank you. I've spent a good deal of time since the issue came up, reviewing the agreement, and as Mr. Peridot said, I also looked through it from my old days as a band booster, so I certainly appreciate that aspect of it. I think we're all in general agreement that perhaps the August agreement might have been in need of a little additional vetting, shall we say. And I think the wording in there, certainly the merchandise, it can be interpreted too broadly. So I think it makes a lot of sense to go back and say, what is the BSN requiring, and let's mirror that, and then tweak the wording accordingly. I spent some time developing a version of it, and looked at several things on the contract that I think while we're at it, if we want to open this up, we could also tweak having to do with issues farther into the agreement of when annual statements are required, what level of detail is required, trying to specify when statements need to be turned in. Again, looking at it through my viewpoint of a past booster, and also with a reasonable hat on as a board member. I had shared a version actually last night at 11 minutes after midnight, and then 2 more versions first thing this morning. And there are a lot of changes of tweaks that I would suggest to clean up this contract in certain areas. I don't know if we have to take a gigantic bite of the apple and fix all those things right now. Could be we want to just maybe, as Mr. Peridot suggests, maybe go back to the August version, add a little bit of required language to that, and then postpone another more detailed revision of this to another day and time, because it'll take a while to make sure we get the wording right. And certainly we do want to get it right. Even though KSBA looks at these, I also spent some time looking at Fayette County's agreement, and let's see, who else did I look at last night? Scott County's agreement, to see what the differences are in there. They're all kind of unique. They start with the base KHSAA agreement, and then the different districts tweak it from there. So we certainly, even though I think it would make sense to tweak the wording some, we may not want to hurry into the process of changing the totality of the agreement tonight. We might just want to take it in steps, and then address those other fine points later on that I think would just clean up things and make them simpler. So I think we're all sort of headed to the same direction, of at least the conversation we've had coming down this table of trying to make some reasonable tweaks to it. Ms. Richardson?
Well, thank you all for being here. And I kind of agree with the rest of the board that paragraph 3 probably needs to be reworded and not as restrictive as it appears. Or take it out completely. So, whatever we decide, I'm good. Yep.
Okay. Well, it seems like we are in agreement about paragraph 3 anyway, right there, so let's kind of get into maybe the meat of this. And again, I'm just going to tell you, I think from my standpoint of supporting, I'm going to support things that more or less takes the language out that we added in. I'm not I think if we get in to start changing language that KSBA has already put in here again, then we're gonna be back in the same situation again. This contract has, I'm not sure how many years it's been here, but probably forever, but it seemed to have worked in the past, and our attempt to try to make it better backfired on us. So my support's gonna go behind, beginning, if we start back with the 319 agreement, which did not have the words in there, and then moving forward with that agreement, if there are things that you want to place in there, I think we need to be very careful about what we put in there. But that's where I would like to start, and as Mr. Heisel said, then maybe further vetting next year before we get into some of the other things. But I think that agreement has served us in the past, and I see no reason why it cannot serve us in the future.
So that agreement just strikens the whole paragraph whatsoever.
It's the original one. That doesn't have paragraph 2 or paragraph 3. And paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 is what we added to the original Booster Club agreement. And I can't say that I'm opposed to all of it, but I definitely would be opposed if we started putting newer language in there over other parts of the agreement.
Can we pull up that?
You should
Well,
have
because-
you should have a copy of that.
Yeah, but we have 4 attachments. They're not dated.
It's
on
number
any
2.
way. Number 2.
I don't know if yours is numbered. It's dated.
The second one, the
I'm
first
tired
was
of looking at how many
717
copies.
and 319 and 8, and most are dies.
And 319 is the original one that we've worked on,
Yes.
that we've used for years. And
Well, it was changed from 319, and the one previously was changed back in 17.
Yeah.
17.
Yeah, and I think that was to get some dates to
Yeah,
help people
that's right.
out, because we were requiring places like baseball, softball and stuff to start doing things in July when they didn't really have to get going until after that. So I think we did some dates for that.
Perhaps a reasonable path is to suggest we start with 319 and then ask the question, for right now, what wording do we absolutely have to have in there? What topics need to be added, and then anything else we can maybe address later on.
Well, I think what has to be in there is what's sent by KSBA. They made sure everything was in there, which just requires basically booster clubs, any booster club, to abide by the rules of the district. And most of it deals with Title IX types of issues, but, anytime, with agreements right there, the booster clubs are working on behalf of the district, so they would have to go by the rules of the district, so I'm not sure what else you're asking.
What I meant was, we'll start with the 319 version,
Right.
roll the clock back to there, and that's our starting point, and then
Right.
say, what do we need to add to that?
See, what we need, personally for myself, I don't think we need to add anything, but if there are statements that somebody wants to need, I think we have to be very careful about that, because that's what happened to us to start with.
So
We
that's
had an
taken-
agreement that never has had an opposition before, to where we changed it and it has an opposition. And that's why we're here tonight, to look to change it. So I think the agreement itself has always provided for us. We just need to be careful about what we add to it. And I'm not saying I'm opposed to adding anything to it, but I think we need to be very careful, because we didn't take the precautions we should have the last time.
So the question I have is if we adopt this version without adding anything to it, then, and this isn't a good, I'm not making this a positive, negative statement, but a booster of any organization could purchase anything they wanted on uniforms and wear it on game day.
No, because see, you got the same agreement. This agreement was in place last year when the high school had an agreement with Bumblebee. So
Yeah, but
it's the
funds-
same thing.
But the only time that applies is when the school uses funds to purchase uniforms. If the boosters purchase uniforms, they can purchase anything they want, is that correct?
But the district, this is what, when booster clubs buy things, they become property of the district. The district has a contract or an agreement with a company. So therefore, they could buy it and we could have it, but our school would not be allowed to allow the team to be able to use it. That's why you have to work together with this. That's why, that's why booster clubs have worked with the school over the past few years, and that's why most every team has an Adidas uniform, because that's where they were bought from, and that was the agreement at that time. But we've changed different people here, so. So the booster clubs technically are never under, what they want to buy. But the school itself, if the school was to allow someone to wear uniforms, if they wore Puma uniforms, we have an agreement of which we save, which we have agreement with, which they have already given over $90,000 to our district. We have an agreement that's going to save us $200,000, okay? And then they come and watch a varsity game and we are not wearing what we agreed to, then those are situations where we as a district get in trouble. So that's the way booster clubs have always asked. If the district has a agreement with someone to buy and purchase from, you don't have to purchase it from them. But as a district official, you could not allow that person to wear that.
You were wanting the paragraph just to be transparent about who we were contracted with, right?
Yeah, I mean, I
Initially.
just didn't think there was anything wrong with putting.
And I don't have a problem. That's what I'm just saying, that
Yeah.
we need to be very careful about the wording. I'm not
Yeah.
against that wording. I'm just saying, let's just make sure that we vet that wording. And I don't think many people have a problem with that paragraph.
Yeah.
Because all we're in there is just encouraging you. It doesn't say you have to, but we're encouraging it. As someone pointed out pretty well out there, is that, our paragraph 3 almost contradicts what we said in paragraph 2.
Right.
So I guess, being probably the most recent booster officer from last year, we were told that as boosters, you could purchase anything you want. If it's booster's money, you can purchase anything you want, but if you was going through the school, then it had to go through the current vendor. So what you just basically said, with the new contract, we can't do that.
Well, you shouldn't even been able to do that through the old one. I mean, I'm just saying that, a booster organization, we cannot tell them where to buy from, but we have an agreement with, here, which means that our school, when a uniform is bought, the school has to approve of that uniform right there. And that's what keeps you on the rotation. If people buy uniforms when it's not time for them to buy uniforms, then it's the school's responsibility to say, no, it's not your time to get uniforms. School in the district's time to say, we got Title IX compliance here. So, I mean, that's why the school officials and the booster people have to work together. But a booster club can buy anything that he wants to. We want to encourage them to buy from our vendor because we get money back that goes directly back into the schools. That's why we want to do it. But if they do buy something that goes against the contract, our school officials cannot allow that to go forward.
So why can't we just, in number 3, just say, we have a current contract with BSN, see contract for details or something?
Well, I think, I think that's implied through the whole thing, but I'm fine with the, that says, Booster Support Club parents are encouraged to purchase from the board-approved vendor, BSN, which in this contract year has been signed for all sports. I think there's a couple little things right there. I think that's all good. I mean, somebody said something about maybe not putting RDC in there, but I still think they could keep in there. I think, the only thing that I would probably change in there is that this rebate money becomes part of the school activity funds that are given to Booster Support Club in the annual rotation of uniform purchasing. Because I'm just saying that we're limiting ourselves when we do that. If ROTC is buying things from there, if the Beta Club is buying things from there, then maybe sometime we want to give them some money back. So I think, to me, that's the only sentence that I really have an issue in there. Now, as far as Robert and Campbell, they're not in the contract. The contract doesn't even state that they have to wear the uniforms at that time. But, we would like, and encourage them to do it just because we get money back. This is how you work together with things. But I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Talking, with that statement. I'm okay with that, and I think that's a good statement. I just think we went a little bit too far on some things.
Well, do we need that statement? Because we could probably spend an hour debating the exact words within that.
Well, we don't need it, no. No,
Okay.
what I'm
So-
saying, what we need is the original agreement. What we tried to make the original agreement better, we thought.
Is the Bumblebee proposal that they gave us back in June, did that pretty much mirror what we were operating before with Bumblebee?
Well, I don't think that needs to come into this
Well,
agreement
I'm
right
just-
here at this time, but I'm saying that that was the agreement last year, and this is the agreement this year.
Well, the reason I do bring that up is because it had specific requirements within that
It
also.
was much more specific on what I think they did state some specifics in theirs, and that was one of our reasons, I think, for choosing the one we did.
So from a legal standpoint, if we want to make sure there's compliance, do we just simply need to perhaps add the wording to the March agreement where it says that Nike uniforms and sideline gear will be required during all high school varsity contests, period?
I wouldn't put that in there.
Or you could just reference the contract.
Again, I'm just saying, I think you can leave the one sentence there that talks about who the approved vendor is, and I think after
They
that,
carry more than Nike.
yeah, they
They
carry
carry
other
other
brands.
brands.
Under
But this is what their contract says.
But that's what I'm saying, is that we got into things that we probably shouldn't have got into, and I think all those things can work out. The Board of Education can't go and enforce, and it's not our job to be enforcing those type of things. That's what, when we sign the contract, that goes to district officials, and then that becomes their job to communicate that to booster clubs, exactly what they can do. And the booster club, obviously, if they want to get the most bang out of their buck, should be speaking to athletic directors and saying, this is what we're looking to buy. I mean, they can't have a fundraiser unless it's approved by the principal of the school. So, I mean, if they come and ask for a fundraiser to buy some uniform that's not approved, then the principal should not approve that fundraiser. That's just a part of the process.
Are you suggesting we just simply go back to the March contract? Or are you saying take March contract and then add in the, we encourage boosters to do word?
Again, I'm saying I am perfectly fine, and I think makes us perfectly legal if we leave that alone. But if you want to put some statements in there, then let's be very careful, because we weren't very careful the first time.
Can we scroll up to so it's showing number 2, but we're making sure everybody here sees the same thing.
What was that?
Number 2,
The March,
terms and condition number 2. There we go.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
That's not the 19th, no, that's the 8/20. Go back to March.
That was the second item in our packet.
There are 2 March ones.
There was one that just had the first statement, one that just had the second paragraph, and then when the other one was added.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're talking about the same one too.
Right, yeah. Yeah, there was one that was presented at the board, and then then we added paragraph 3 when we were at the meeting.
What does it, how does paragraph 2 start on the agreement you're referring to?
The agreement I have, the 319, there is no, it's where applicable, the Booster Support Club acknowledges that its activities may affect compliance with Title IX.
there is, the 2 and 3 that we added, 4 was the old 2.
Right, yeah.
Keep going, keep going.
Yeah, that's the original agreement, correct, Mr. Thomas? That's the original agreement.
That's the,
That's the March 19th,
Before you did anything.
before we did anything, right
does
there.
it say at the bottom, then review revised 418? No, it's, okay.
We approved.
What's it say at the bottom? Scroll to the bottom, so we know what,
Go to the bottom of the second page there.
yes, sir, please.
Should say review revised 3/19/2019. I mean, of course, for that,
All the way to the
This
bottom.
says revised 4/16/2017.
yeah. See, that was what we had that night, and we had the language right there of the 30 days in there. And so then this was revised on the 19th to add the date, the 30 days for each one of
March
them.
19th.
Yeah, that's the March 19th.
So
It should
that's-
say review revised 3/19/2019.
You had the correct one up then for.
It was the March 19 one, but the date was not updated.
You could put that up if you got that one, I mean, you could, just as long as it says 319 at the bottom, that's it right there.
I'm gonna pull up from the website what's been officially
It
turned
was the
in.
second one in the packet.
It was the second one that all linked. It's-
Yeah, it was the second one Arlene sent us.
Just trying to double check.
This doesn't state anything about
Yeah, that's, of course, it's the 820.
boosters purchasing.
Yeah, that's what I said, this was the original one that we've used.
This one doesn't even state that we encourage them to purchase
No.
anything.
Right.
It didn't have any of that language.
Doesn't have any of that language right there, but it's the agreement that's been there forever, but pretty much says that you have to go by school guidelines.
So if we adopt this, we're asking the school to enforce
This
the
contract.
district guidelines.
That's right.
Yeah, which
And
is the way it always,
which includes the BSN
yeah,
contract.
which has always been that way.
Which is what-
But if you want to add wording to that, and I think that's what we tried to do, is we tried to
We
add
wanted to
wording.
be clear and transparent to
Right.
the boosters.
Let's get everybody signed up. You can always, like Scott, you can always tweak it, you know, because you may want to take out the athletic director at some point, because PTO's probably not going to have to get approval from the athletic. You know, band's probably not going to get approval from the athletic director, so there's a couple of tweaks that need to be done, but you might as well, wait, it's just like Mr. Parado said, let's just get something, get it signed, get everything going. And then take the slow road out to try to figure it out, so that we're not, because I think before, you know, we were trying to hammer something down.
So as our trusted legal advisor,
That's what he's saying.
that's what you are. You're happy.
At least a legal advisor, anyway.
But the day you're not gonna be our legal advisor anymore. You're happy with the March agreement and the BSN agreement, knowing that they both coexist at the same time and they don't necessarily have to
Guys,
be linked
could we kind
together.
of keep it down a little
As
bit?
we're working each
Please,
side.
thank you.
Okay.
I agree that that would be an appropriate starting point, that would be enforceable. That, I mean, it's the same agreement, really, the 19 agreement is pretty close to the 17 agreement with the addition of, I think, 30 days.
30 days.
We changed, added support club and some other things like that. I could certainly live with that, because that way we could agree on that, and then we could take, you know, months to tweak the wording of the rest of it, instead of just trying to hash it all out tonight. Oh, who won?
They did, but
Oh,
one at the
my
last second.
goodness.
Well, I agree with Mr. Parado, going back to this document, with the understanding that Mr. Christie has to make sure that all the schools follow the policies that, which is including the BSN contract.
Yes.
And so, that eliminates, you know, any confusion with the boosters understanding that we have this BSN contract out there that, you know, and you all have the terms and conditions of that BSN contract, so, that would still need to follow. But we're not we wouldn't be putting those terms and conditions in the booster agreement.
Right. I mean, just
Because the
like,
schools would be enforcing.
we don't put all the Title IX rules
Yeah.
in there. We don't put all the fundraising rules in there. It's just, I mean, this is a general agreement to be an authorized booster club. And it basically just says you're gonna comply with district guidelines.
And if any booster clubs has any questions, they just go to the.
They would go to the AD, principal, superintendent. I mean, I'd start with AD and go from that way.
I can live with that, and then we take the time to do a more comprehensive tweak of it later on.
Yeah,
We're not under the gun.
yeah. Ms. Ritchie,
Or a time
I know you
constraint,
just got
right?
here, any,
Sherry's caught me up.
okay.
But do we want to take a motion on this then?
Could I, one thing I would ask that in the agreement that you look at, there was a change from Red Book that we need to make sure is in this one, and it's the date, it's on the, I think it's the third page, it's the date. There's a date given of July 15th that they are to booster clubs.
I've just got 2 pages, so it's,
Yeah, July
I'm
15th.
sorry, second page,
Paragraph
it's in
7.
item 9, I think.
says all before July 15th.
Yes, that needs to change to July 25th, and that's a Red Book, that's not us, that's a Red
The
Book.
25th is the date.
The 25th is the, and that's changed since we did the booster agreement. So
We can make that change right now.
So 25th is the date. We can't say 31st, it's 25th.
25th. You're just replacing where it said on or before July 15th to say on or before July 25th.
Paragraph 7. There's no further comments or questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Booster Club Agreement revised 3/19/2019 to replace the current booster agreement with change to paragraph 7 to include on before July 25th.
Okay, you got the big
On page, that's all.
Just reference that procedure.
Procedure 0,
Clear
I
on
want
the
to reference procedure.
Are you clear on the motion?
Yeah, I want to reference procedure, those
Second.
09.33 AP.2.
Make sure that's referenced in there as well. We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Talby.
I'll second it.
We have a second by Mr. Heisel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ashley. Got a motion to adjourn?
Before we do that, could just clarify, because this is a procedure, this takes immediate effect.
Right, yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure that they knew that it just changed.
Motion on the floor. I have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Say aye.
I think it's one I gave Mike.
Yeah, it's the one we did. It was the one that